Welcome to Inside PTI, weekly videos designed to get you the trial results you want, agronomy explanations you need, and insights that will set you up for success this season. Today we're going to revisit a topic that we've already talked about on Inside PTI, saturated cold germ testing. So when we released our Inside PTI video out talking about our saturated cold germ testing, I've had kind of a flood of phone calls from various people, from farmers to even seed companies, asking about who's doing the testing for us, what labs. I mean, are they doing it differently? Do we see differences in results from different labs? And so I just kind of wanted to share with you some of the new results that we've got in off the corn that we're going to plant this year in 2020. And remember, the whole goal for everybody here, I guess, is getting that perfect stand of corn. But if we plant our corn and we run into conditions that really aren't quite adequate, like cold and wet conditions, is there a way to kind of pre-stress test our corn to determine if we shouldn't plant it in that type of environment? So we do a saturated cold germ test to get that kind of pre-stress test. And this is where we take some of our seed. We've talked about this before. It's nothing new. We take our seed, we put it into 100% saturated cold 50-degree soil. We leave it in the chamber in the lab for 7 days. We take it out and then we transition it into warm 77-degree soil temps for 4 days. And we just check the germ on it, and this simulates a grower planting in both cold and wet conditions. And ironically, that's kind of what we had last year in 2019, and we're having some of the same situations here in 2020, okay? So this was a picture from last year in 2019. Come in, we plant corn, and boom, we get a storm comes in. We've got tons of water, and look how cold it is. Got a heat gun on this. We're 41 degrees. This is where we want to be testing our corn to find out how well it can get through this tough situation, because apparently there's a difference in corn hybrids. We've been testing corn for saturated cold germ for a lot of years, and every year, we find corn hybrids that struggle with the saturated cold germ test, and we don't want to put them into situations like this. Okay, here's, I'll again tell the story very quickly. 2 hybrids we tested last year. The warm and cold germs were excellent. It couldn't get much better than this. But when we look at the saturated cold germ, it tells the whole story. Hybrid A comes in at 87%, which is a great score. Hybrid B, 40%. 40. It tells you it doesn't like the cold, wet conditions before we go plant. So why would we want to go put it into cold, wet conditions? I took this corn, I did plant it into those cold, wet conditions. I got half a stand. We got 15,000 stands out there after planting 36,000. Got half a stand. But yet when I turned around and replanted that corn on June 5th, when conditions were warm and we didn't have the cold, wet conditions, I got a great stand. 34 out of 36,000 came up. See, this test, this pre-stress test tells us, don't put it in that situation. It's not going to do very well. Look at Hybrid A that had the 87% saturated cold germ score. You know, even in the cold, wet conditions, it got me 33,000 of a stand when I planted 36. I got 35 again when I planted it into the warm and dry conditions. It shows you the pre-stress test for these corns. I lost 56 bushel to the acre when I put this corn into cold, wet conditions, and the test told me not to do it. But that's what we do at PTI. We find out what kind of cost. This was 56 bushel, and we ended up losing over $200 on a per acre basis. Tremendous losses. So, revisiting this, the questions: what lab do we use, and is there a difference between labs? Are they the same? I'm using Midwest Laboratories out of Omaha, Nebraska, and Illinois Crop Improvement out of Champaign, Illinois. I send samples to both of these labs, and I evaluate the results from both of these testing facilities. And here's the results. I sent in 22 samples this past year, and I just labeling them 1 to 22. I'm showing lab 1, lab 2, okay? And there was only a 2.9% germ average difference between the 2 labs on average of the 22 samples. And I guess here's the thing. If someone's gonna ask me, is there a difference in the way they're testing the corn? And I'm just gonna go right to these red circles on the graph here. Look at the ones that were suspect. Okay, let's look at the middle of the screen. That sample number 13. Lab 1 was 75. Lab 2 was 77. That's kind of a borderline for me right there, saying, hey, we get much worse than this, we're going to be in trouble. Let's go to number 10. We're 51% germ on lab 1, 64% on lab 2. Both of those are low numbers, offering us some consistency, giving us a warning for that particular hybrid, that number 10. And then look at number 21. We've got both labs testing the same corn hybrid, and we're in the 40s, a 45 and a 40. That is that warning for you that that hybrid does not like cold and wet conditions. So, in answer to the question, we can go to different labs to test our corn for saturated cold germ. We can do it, and I think we're getting some consistent results. Samples number 1 and samples number 22 were probably the extreme. We were 16 percentage points off on each of those, but we were a 98 and an 82 on both, so I really didn't fear too much. I thought those were really good scores on both those sample results. So today's Inside PTI agronomy tip of the day is saturated cold germ testing can be an easy and practical way to really understand what kind of environment certain corn hybrids can handle being planted into. For a simple $20 to $25 test, we can pre-stress test our corn hybrids to really get a sneak peek into how they will perform. And judging from our data, there are multiple labs that can do a great job that offer good consistency. For more information or questions, feel free to reach out to any Precision Planting Premier dealer, or you can email us at InsidePTI@precisionplanting.com. We'll see you on the next episode of Inside PTI. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching.